What was the dumbest thing you ever did to try and impress a girl or guy? My time at church camp. When I was in 6th grade, my parents talked me to going to a week-long church camp. I knew of, but didn't know personally any of the kids going. But they told me that everyone would praise Jesus, ride horses, and have a good time. I decided to go. It was like a 6-hour drive in one of those big white vans. Quickly, everyone started whipping out their CD cases and exchanging music, and I instantly was like, oh no, I only had 2 CDs. Britney Spears, Baby One More Time, and Everclear. I was a really weird kid. Everyone was talking to me about music, and I had honestly never heard of any of the bands they were talking about. I just wanted to jam some Britney to myself. So naturally, I went the elitist routine. Said I had all of that music, and I was listening to some new underground private thing they hadn't heard of. Once we get to camp, all I'm thinking is, let's find some friends quickly because I can't talk to these kids anymore. I go to the pool and make some friends with a few older kids. There were 3 girls, 2 guys, and me. They were all in 8th grade, so obviously they were really cool. Plus, I thought the girls were really hot. I figured this would be the best time, if any, to get my first kiss. We decided to leave the pool and walk around the camp till we all had to have a group meetup. The cabins were separated by grade, so they said they would walk by the 6th grade cabin and pick me up. First thing I do is put on my freshest outfit. Right time to break out my fresh white t-shirt. Can't forget my jean shorts. This was pre-faded denim, so this was the industrial bright blue jean shorts. It's summer in Texas, so might as well top the outfit off with knee-high white socks. And of course, for the women, Doc Martens. I look like a weird redneck lumberjack. So I walk out and they're kind of shocked, but whatever. It's kiss time. We start walking and one of the older guys makes a sound and all the girls laugh. Boom. Found my in. My friend Travis and I have been making sound jokes for quite some time, so I'm up to speed in this area of humor. Bam. The other guy makes a sound and all the girls laugh even harder. Got him. I'm thinking all I have to do is drop the biggest sound and literally the girls are going to laugh so hard they're going to kiss me one by one. I start clenching and squeezing my stomach as hard as I can. I'm walking like a newborn deer. Then I feel it. Got a big one ready. So instead of just dropping it out and laughing, I wanted to make a big show about it. I ran in front of the small group, squatted down, turned my head around, and forcefully messed myself. This was all out of diarrhea. If you didn't know this before, early 90s denim was the least forgiving fabric in the world. Everyone knew I messed up. I've never been to this camp before, so I'm just running for anything. I found a bathroom to toss the socks, shirt, but I couldn't drop the jorts. Plus, at this point, I'm thinking maybe they didn't really see it. I was really confident in my speed at the time, so I was thinking I could say that's my thing. Come to find out, not only were there 5 people in front of the bathroom waiting for me, but there were like 25 kids. Instantly, I just ran in my docs and jorts combo back to the cabin I was staying in with the other kids chasing me and yelling, "Messy pants!" I ran to my bed to find all the music nerds I drove up with going through my CD case. It only has 2 CDs. They're like, "Thought you had tons of secret music, bro." Wait, did you mess your pants? So yeah, that was about 4 hours into a week-long trip. I really thought producing gas would impress these girls. I lost my favorite pair of jorts and a bit of my pride that day. From Britney Spears to Brown Note. Quite the musical range at church camp. Story 2. My first serious girlfriend is home alone, and I think this might be the day I get off of second base. I'm all hormone-addled and obviously confident this girl is the love of my life. It's midsummer and I know I can bike the 3-ish miles pretty quickly. I tell my parents I'm going to see my friend right around the block. They warn me that the thunderstorm is rolling in, and I tell them it takes no time to get there. 10 minutes later, I'm only halfway there, terrified, crying, pedaling as hard as I can to go downhill against the wind. My all-metal framed BMX knockoff Huffy doing its best not to get hit with lightning and fuse me to its shiny silver exterior forever. 30 minutes after that, I pull into her garage and thank God that all the rain has hid the fact that I've been ugly sobbing the entire way. Her parents then pull in as I'm literally hunched over trying to catch my breath. I told them this was the only house I knew in the street and it would have been life-threatening to bike the rest of the way home in this storm. They smiled, probably knowing it was a lie, and treated me to a nice dinner. It ends with a very awkward drive home with her father. I bike in the back of his truck. This dad is just driving him home like, this poor little dumb kid. He tried so hard. Story 3. I hoarded a bunch of stuffed animals I won at a local arcade over the summer for this girl I really liked. One night I thought, tonight's the night. I'm going to surprise my crush with all these stuffed animals and she's going to fall in love with me. So I threw them in a white garbage bag, walked 2 miles down the road to her house during sunset, and knocked on her door. She answered the door while I concealed the bag of goodies behind my back. She awkwardly asked what I was doing at her house, and I revealed the surprise. She slowly grabbed the bag from me, looked inside of it, and gave me an awkward thanks while closing the door. Right then and there, I realized I miscalculated the gesture and probably looked like a huge creep. I power walked back home, and to this day, I still think about it from time to time. I think it's my brain's way of punishing me eternally for putting it through that whole thing. I'm loaded with stupid stories like this one because I'm a huge romantic, and I tend to get bent in one way or another because I just don't see clearly when I'm in the haze of being in love. Here's another one, arguably more embarrassing. So to start, I'm a hairy guy, chest and back just plagued with hair. It's bad. Anyway, about 3 years ago, I had this huge crush on a girl. I've been telling my best friend this girl was literally perfection in my eyes. Beautiful, smart, hilarious, and down to earth. But I couldn't find a way to ask this girl to hang out with me without becoming awkward and making a fool of myself. I mean, I turned into a bumbling fool whenever I just said hi to her or make small talk, so how in the hell am I supposed to ask her out? What was I going to do? It hit me, though. This girl does waxing as a side job and I'm a hairy guy. It's perfect, right? What if I make up an excuse for her to wax me? So one day I sent her a text and made up a reason as to why I need my chest and back waxed. She, of course, accepts the job. The next thing you know, I'm at her house on my back shirtless. She's applying the hot wax to my chest. It starts to hit me. This probably wasn't the best way to get her to hang out with me. She applies the strip and rip. Out comes a chunk of chest hair. I am not kidding when I say it hurts. I'm doing my best not to show pain, but it's damn near impossible. My face is giving it all away and she's having a blast with it. Of course, I want to tell her, you know what, forget it. This isn't for me. But I can't. I put myself in this situation just to spend time with her and I can't go out now. So I took it. My chest and back hair completely gone. By the end of it, I was filled with regret and I was $50 lighter. I left a broken, hairless man and I realized how absolutely desperate I was to spend time with her. I took a wax off my chest and back for that girl, but happy ending to all this. We're currently engaged and we wed later this year. She loves to hold the story over my head because she finds it adorable. I took a beating just so I could spend time with her. Mildly embarrassing, but I take it because it makes her smile. Story 4. I've told the story before, but when I was about 8 years old, we took a field trip to the Field Museum here in Chicago. During our lunch break, I decided to wander off to the gift shop and see what they had. I had a huge crush on this girl named Victoria in my class, and I saw this ladybug ring for a couple of dollars. I knew she liked ladybugs, and I had money my parents gave me to buy something at the shop, so I decided to buy the ring and give it to her. I was really nervous and kept waiting for the right time to do it. I eventually decided to just go for it. I walked up to her near the end of the trip. She was with some of her friends, which made me more nervous, but I found the courage to do it. She looked at the ring and laughed. Her friends joined her, and she then tossed the ring in the trash. I was completely devastated and tried hard to hold back my tears. Even though I'm over it now, that completely messed up my confidence with girls for a long time. Looking back, I may have embarrassed her by giving it to her in front of her friends, which is why she reacted that way, but whatever the case, it's probably the most embarrassing I've been in my life. Story 5. In 5th grade, I jumped straight down a flight of stairs. Here's a little backstory. There was this girl I liked. We talked a lot, kinda sorta. She gave off a vibe like she liked me, but she did the same with other boys too. So here, and one of my friends were having a conversation. It was a fun day or a free day, so everyone was just hanging with their friends and such. So anyway, I saw them and she was laughing at a joke he told. So in my mind, I thought it would look cool jumping down the stairs and landing on my feet, thinking maybe she'll think I'm some athletic freakazoid. I took a good running start and ran straight between them so she would have no choice but to look. I leaped as far as I could, feeling so majestic and graceful. It was very short-lived. I felt the ground put an abrupt stop to my gracefulness. I knocked the wind out of myself, but still managed to stay on my feet. I literally could not breathe. I couldn't stand up straight without feeling any pain. I looked up and saw her looking at me. So, with everything in me, I stood up straight and walked until I was out of view. Then I instantly stooped over again and made my way toward my class. All my friends that passed was asking me if I was okay. I was clutching my stomach and chest. I made my way back to my class and collapsed on the floor until I recovered. Story 6. I met a girl through a friend at a party. She seemed very down to earth and chill, too. After dancing a few songs, I asked for her number. She gave it to me because I seemed cool, her words. After a couple of weeks of texting, I decided to ask her out on a date. She agreed. I should note that my previous relationship left me devastated, and I was a bit desperate to find someone else. I set up this nice dinner at my house. I'm talking home-cooked meal. Nice dinner table surrounded by candles. From the door to the dining room, I had a path of candles. Nice romantic music playing in the background, and an NBA 2K13 game paused, ready to be played. She told me she was into it. Well, she saw it as desperation. Rightfully so. She said it was too much for a first date. I have to agree it was a bit much for a first date, but I just wanted to show her that side of me. I didn't mean to be a weirdo. Story 7. Freshman year in high school. Had a crush on a classmate. We'll call him L, who seemed like he liked me too, but he was popular, so you never know if it's just them doing the whole smooth, friends with everyone yet borderline flirting kind of act. So I decided to profess my love via a poem. I thought it would impress him to show my mad rhyming skills and my absolute adoration for alliteration. Go to L's locker during a restroom break, shove that 4 pages thick bad boy in those tiny little windows of ventilation, and then, after the bell rings, giggle and hide with my girlfriends as we watch from afar, waiting for him to go to his locker so my shower of love could befall upon him. Well, turns out I stuffed it in the wrong locker. Let's call him Jay, a kid I generally did not get along with. Jay is at first shocked, confused that his enemy wrote him a poem because I couldn't keep it anonymous and play cool. Nope, no sir. I had to write Poem Written with Love by Kismet as a title. Then Jay realizes that I did not mean for these love notes to be for him, and quickly starts calling out for the entire freshman year to come over. I start to rush over with every intention of shutting him up. My friends hold me back. Till this day, I still have no idea why they stopped me. Anyway, Jay starts reading out my poems, and even Elle is there to listen to them. And at the end, there was even a declaration to Elle, of sorts, where I basically asked Elle if he would be my boyfriend. Laughter, pitiful looks, a whole ordeal. I was mortified. Elle was never friendly with me again. Never let me explain or apologize for humiliating him. The bright side, though, people forgot about it by sophomore year. Still had a lot of friends, and my English teachers heard about it and thought I had talent. So I pursued a writing major after that. Story 8. Obligatory, not me, but around 7th grade, the boys in my art class used to have competitions among themselves. They tried to find out who could drink the most distilled vinegar, who could jump down the most steps on the stairs, and they would take the ink out of these little ink cartridges you'd have for your fountain pen. It was pretty gross, not really healthy, and a really stupid and weird thing to do. And it's weird that they thought that would be the thing to impress girls, but it totally worked. I had a huge crush on the guy who drank the most vinegar, regularly ate ink cartridges, and jumped down a whole flight of stairs in one go. And he actually became my first ever boyfriend. Another one is when a guy in his 20s took me out on a date. Pretty obviously had feelings for me, but pretended he didn't because he had issues and didn't want me to have control over him. Stupid 18-year-old me pretended I didn't have any feelings for him either, to be the cool girl, and so I could still hang out with him because I was super infatuated. Wasn't cool at all. Made for a terrible relationship, but a big lesson in never picking a guy like that again. Never playing stupid dating games again either. Story 9. When I was in 3rd grade, I wanted to impress these girls that were good friends of mine because I was always known for being really funny. So naturally, I wanted to please and entertain. I found the school pester and his best friend. My terribly stupid idea started from screaming, "You're a big dummy." Next thing, he stormed off and a group of kids grabbed me to the edge of the hill before throwing me down the biggest hill at our school. While the school pester beat me on the way down, and while I was down, they thought I was funny and were mad at the dude. I got him suspended, lied, and said I was calling myself an idiot and that they misheard me. I spent the rest of the day at home playing Halo 3. Story 10. Was at a friend's lake house on a lake in northern Maine, a short drive from the border with Canada in late May. The water had been a sheet of ice a few weeks prior, but it was nice and warming up. So while we were out on the lake in a boat with his wife and my girlfriend, I decided to show off by swimming to a small island that was in the center of the lake. It was surrounded by buoys, marking where it was too shallow for boats. It looked to be only a few hundred yards away, so I stripped to my shorts and dove into the water. I was a pretty strong swimmer then, but that water was the coldest thing I've ever encountered. It got into my rhythm, but each time I came up for air, I was simply unable to breathe and be on tiny little gasps. Gradually worry, and then panic came over me and I began to fatigue far quicker than I would have expected. In my mind, I started to worry that if I made it to the island, I would not be able to get back. So I began to modify my expectations, just wanting to make it to the buoy. Then I gave up that goal and just stopped, turned around to call for help, to see that my friends had sped away. They were gone. I was in the middle of this freezing lake with nothing, exhausted and alone. Full panic started then. Panic strength helped me get to the buoy, which I was able to cling to for a few minutes before they mercifully came back. In the end, it worked. The girl in question is now my wife. I still show off my swimming prowess to her any chance I get. Story 11. An attractive foreign exchange student from Spain nearly wrecked my car as I attempted to teach her to drive for the first time. I think my thought process was that it'd be a memorable experience for her that would eventually pave the way to me getting with her. There was an attractive foreign exchange student from Spain at her school in rural Iowa that year, and I befriended her in an attempt to get with her eventually. After a couple months of being her friend, we somehow got on the topic of how she's never driven a car, but would love to try it out. I think driving is far less common in other countries when compared to the US, but don't quote me on that. Update. I should also let it be known that I befriended her because she was an interesting, fun person. We had similar personalities, and it just so happened that I was also attracted to her. So I thought, what could be the worst thing to happen if I let her drive around the parking lot a bit? I seemed to do fine my first time driving. Well, it turns out she had no concept of gradual, slow, even pressure on the pedal while you're starting off, and about wrecked my car a few times by going pedal to the floor. I had to pull the e-brake, and I decided it wasn't worth totaling my car and whoever else was parked in the lot that day. Story 12. I was hopelessly in love with probably the most beautiful girl I'd ever seen. She's Turkish, I'm English, and we met on a ski trip in France. Somehow, and I still don't know how I managed it, she started to really like me. I went to visit her in Turkey, and after a few days, the novelty of dating an Englishman wore off. She grew increasingly distant, which made me even more love-struck. I was just following her around like the hopeless idiot I was, and still I am. One night at around 3 a.m., we were in bed and she was fast asleep. In one last effort to make her fall in love with me, I thought it'd be a good idea to wake her up and show her how good I am at anagrams. After about 5 minutes of her staring at me in half-awake confusion, it dawned on me. She spoke a little English and didn't know what any of the words were. She must have thought I'd woken her up at 3 a.m. to give her a bizarre impromptu English lesson. On reflection, that is probably less weird than the reality. I returned to England the next day and she never spoke to me again. Story 13. It may have been dumb, impractical, but I'd do it again. He was a cool guy with big muscles and dirty hands who didn't care what anyone thought of him. He had no clue how gorgeous he was. So different from the super rich ones I worked with every day in corporate America. He was a race car driver and lived for cars. I remember he always talked about a certain sports car he wanted. I was a serious 30-year-old businesswoman who was most proud of my master's degree, my many contacts in our local business and political community, and the Fortune 400 company I was busy dealing with to become a VP. But this tough, manly man with his scruffy hands and hot bod who feared nothing suddenly was all I could think about. He was known as the guy to beat at the track, and the guys hated him. The girls loved him. I mean, he was so cool. I'd never met a cool guy before. And he was so tough. Other drivers would try to fight him, and he was like, "Bring it on." I was like a teenage girl at a Beatles concert. I had never seen a guy harm someone before either. I loved it. It wasn't a mean guy or a pester. He didn't pick fights. He had good morals and never broke the law or anything like that. He was just the kind of really manly man that is what women are truly attracted to if they're honest with themselves. He literally made me weak in the knees. I mean, I couldn't breathe when I was near him. Oh, I had it bad. This guy knocked the sensibility right out of me, and I thought about him all the time. I was nothing like the girls at the racetrack, but I decided to have him. So one day after having brunch with my family, I just decided to go and immediately buy that sports car he loved so he would think I was a cool chick. I figured he would probably want to be my boyfriend so he could drive that when we went out. Looking back, I don't know what came over me. I knew nothing about cars and couldn't have cared less. But I traded in my old tan Camry sedan and bought this sports car brand new off the lot. You should have seen his face when he came to my house for dinner that night. Say what you will, but it worked for me. Our 21st wedding anniversary is Valentine's Day, and we own a car dealership. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 14. I met a fella online and in conversation, he mentioned how much he loved Resident Evil. We were both gamers but had never touched that series before. So I invested hours of wiki-crawling research to understand the games. Lore, monsters, characters, what happened in which game, the works. We met in person and bonded over our love for horror flicks. So we went back to his place to watch some. He offered putting in one of the Resident Evil movies, to which I said, "Hell yes," thinking I'd get to flex my encyclopedic RE knowledge and impress him. I made some comments during the movie, without being obnoxious, and afterward made some comments about how the movie portrayal differed from the games. Called a few of the monsters by name, which they hadn't been in the movies, etc. He gives me a funny look and goes, "Huh, I never played the game, so I'll take your word for it." Damn it. But it worked out because now we're married. Story 15. My now boyfriend loves surfing. I've never surged, but I had done plenty of bodyboarding while vacationing in Maine. A few months after meeting, he took his sister, his friend, and me to the beach to surf or bodyboard. I felt confident in my bodyboarding abilities, so I paddled out to where he was on his surfboard. Cue me learning the Pacific Ocean is an entirely different beast than the Atlantic. The set came and I got washing machines aka spun underneath the water in circles, unable to tell which way is up or down. I wasn't too worried. I was a good swimmer and I had been in this situation before. I find the surface, come up to breathe, and another wave knocks me under, spinning again. I'm still not panicking, but my lungs are getting a little tight. I come up again and can see the wave coming. My boyfriend's sister and friend are next to me, being worked by the waves as well. I try to swim for my life so I don't get hit by the wave again. I don't think I'll be able to take another one. The wave hits and I panic. Somehow I found the surface and the beach. His sister was puking ocean water. His friend sprawled out of the beach. I just sat on my board and called it a day. So much for impressing him. Story 16. Took up her younger brother's challenge to wrestle on the floor. I was 100% grappled and unable to escape. He finally let me go after she just sighed and ignored us long enough. The same day, during what I assume was a tickle fight or something, I tried to playfully scoop her up off the couch and made a sound in the process. I immediately erupted in a fit of hysterical laughter for 5 minutes while she sat there wondering what was so funny about a sound. Same girl. I once watched one of the band members at school flirtingly lift her up over his shoulder and carry her around. We were dating, but I was a wimp and not going to say anything. She giggled, and afterwards said something along the lines of, "He's so annoying," in a more or less playful manner. So, in the same basement TV room where her brother rendered me previously motionless on the floor, we were doing probably nothing when I hoisted her up over my shoulder and stood there for a moment, wondering why she wasn't giggling. I put her down after she said, "What's happening?" At which point I probably stuttered and shrugged it off. In hindsight, even the few short months we dated were longer than I had any business getting away with. Please tell me I wasn't the only one who was so helpless in high school. Story 17. I met this really cute girl once at a GameStop. Me, being the little scaredy cat I am, was too nervous to give this girl my number. So my roommate, after we had left the store, ran back and gave her my number, and eventually she texted me back. But this girl was into substances. And spoiler alert, I'm not. I smoke some occasionally, but I'm no aficionado. So I go to her place sometime to hang out, and she has a friend over. We're hanging out and talking, and eventually we all decided to take a drive to a remote place to smoke some of the devil's lettuce. I grossly overestimated how much I could hit the bowl of sweet nectar. I take a couple hits, and the next thing I know, I'm on the ground with both of them trying to wake me up. I'm out of it. I'm shaking and can't think straight. Time was an illusion of the mind, and I'm anxiously trying to leave her place without looking like trash. I would attempt to get out of the chair, only to sit back down thinking, no, she'll hate you if you leave. I eventually left and got myself home. I was so ashamed. But only months later, realized I got out scot-free. She started dating this other guy and was doing some hardcore thing. The next day, though, was a trip. I was still out of my mind and was working. Most of my coworkers knew immediately. Story 18. College party. A girl I thought was hot was inside an apartment with a sliding screen door. We had a class together. She sees me gawking. She waves for me to come in. Seeing my chance, I proceed to do just that. I, however, choose not to open the sliding screen door, but to walk right through said sliding screen door. My momentum tore off all the screen right out of the door. I only paused for a moment before continuing on into the room, dragging a shredded metal screen. I guess I felt that at that point I had nothing left to lose. Certainly not my dignity. I sat down next to her in the midst of all her girlfriends, who, understandably enough, is snickering away. "Hey ladies, how's everyone doing this fine evening?" More snickers and some downright laughter. My girl feels bad for me and drags me away from her friends. I gladly went with her, dragging my own baggage. Proceed to make out with a girl later at the bar. Help the emotional healing process. Bacitration help with the physical. Story 19. In high school, I went to the state competition for Deca Club. After seeing this girl from a different high school, which happened to be in the same county as my high school, I did everything I could to hang out with her while on the trip. I was super shy and super nervous, but hung around this girl and her friend the entire trip. At one point, I thought it would be cool or funny to eat 4 packs of sugar at once from the little coffee bar at the hotel where the competition was. Turned out it was Splenda or something, and spent the next few minutes gagging and dry heaving. After that, it became apparent my hanging around this girl and her friend had the unintended effect of her friend now having a crush on me. At one point, I ended up in their room talking to her friend for like an hour, muddling through the conversation while trying not to look like a creeper, staring at the girl I have a crush on. It started to snow at the hotel, so a bunch of students from my school went outside and had a snowball fight with minimal weather-appropriate clothes. My crush was briefly without her friend and was watching us throw snowballs from inside. Obviously, that was my cue to make the most snowballs and attempt to destroy everyone as a means of male dominance. Once my hands began to stop working because they were too cold, I ducked inside away from the ruckus. There she was, standing there by herself. I can't muster anything meaningful to say. Then the next thing I know, her hands are cupped around mine to warm them. After coming off the high of having my hands warmed by a pretty girl I had a crush on, I threw caution to the wind and decided I was going to ask her out. But her friend was set on making me her man. I called their hotel room and the friend picked me up. I told her that I thought she was cool and I wanted to stay friends, but I didn't feel the same way about her. I asked the girl I just let down if I could talk to. This was the moment I literally couldn't remember my crush's name because I was so nervous. Your friend. My crush gets on. I managed to stutter through asking her to breakfast the next morning. The guys listening to me in my room are cringing. After a pause that seemed like 10 minutes, to my surprise, she said yes. The next morning rolls around and my crush comes to my door before breakfast without her friend and asks to talk to me. The look on her face says it's not good news. Here it is, the letdown speech. The same speech I just gave to my crush's friend. To this day, I still have no idea what she said until, so here's my number. As shocking as that was, we didn't go out to breakfast because her friend was listening on another handset when I asked my crush out. This resulted in the friend hating me. My crush and her friend avoided me until we ended up on the same bus going back to our hometown. They sat in the row in front of me, pretending I didn't exist. After a pit stop for food, I could see my crush in the gap between the seat and the wall of the bus trying to sleep. The bus's heater was broken, so it was really cold. She was shivering like crazy. Instinctively, I took my coat off and laid it over her, taking care not to wake her. The friend gave me a nasty look that relaxed when she realized what I was doing. I pulled my arms into my shirt to survive the cold the rest of the way home. The next day, I called my crush's number. No answer. Left a message. It's over, I know it. She just didn't want to be mean. I'll never see her again. 4 days later, she called me back. 15 years later, we're still together, married and have 2 kids. Story 20. In grade school, I had a massive crush on a girl named Jenny. She was your classic first crush, blonde, tall, hip-hop dancer. I'd been watching a lot of Clint Eastwood movies in secret at the time and loved the Dirty Harry character. My dad growing up was a complainer and general baby, and to me, Harry was the opposite, a pinnacle of masculinity. I decided the best way to win Jenny's attention was to copy Dirty Harry exactly, his cadence, squinted eyes and clenched teeth, etc. I rehearsed for a while and decided to stage a run-in with Jenny after social studies. On the day, I wore a denim jacket, denim jeans, and beefy black boots that were a little above my size. When the moment came, time moved in slow motion. As Jenny rounded the corner, my eyes tightened into what I thought was a piercing eagle gaze. I brushed my hair back like a greaser, clenched my teeth, and waltzed up to her like it was a high noon draw. "Hey, Jenny," I said, barely audible through my teeth. "I like your style." Jenny turned, confused, bent down, and said with an angelic voice, "Are you okay? Why are your eyes like that? Do you need to see the nurse?" Apparently, I looked less like Clint and more like I was having a stroke. Story 21. Not me, but my little brother. It was a hot summer night and all of the neighbor kids had gathered at my best friend's house up the street from mine. My little brothers were with me, about 2 years younger. Anyways, that night some new people were moving in across the street from my best bud. Then we noticed they had girl daughters around our age. So we all went over there and introduced ourselves as any teenage guy with half a sack would. Then out of nowhere, I see a weird blur of something moving quickly in my peripheral vision along the ground. Not knowing what the hell it is, I turn to see my little brother, for whatever reason, sliding in the grass, kind of like a baseball player might slide into home. After he slid, he picked himself up, took a few paces back, and did it again. And again. This little fellow is just sliding all over the place in their new front lawn for God knows what reason, while we all stood and talked to the new neighbors. We later asked him what the hell he was doing, and he said, "I don't know." Come to find out, he thought it would impress the cute new neighbor. I still haven't really wrapped my mind around it, but I can't help but smile and be grateful for that weird experience with my little bro. We still tease him about it, and he always smiles when remembering, too. So maybe not life-threatening, but certainly just dumb. Story 22. I'm going to tell one my friend did. We were hanging out with some girls, and my friends had the brilliant idea of going to the river to go swimming. Purely a ploy to get them in bikinis. Totally a good ploy, by the way. They agreed, so we all headed down there. The water is pretty deep because it's a little before a dam and we're all kind of wading and swimming in it. There is a tree that is leaning way over the water, and some of us will climb up and jump off into the deeper part of the water. The tree is maybe 10 feet high at the highest part that'll support a person. And my buddy Dan, who's a great guy but will do things to impress people without thinking about the consequences, decides he's going to impress the girls by climbing to the farthest part of the tree and jumping off. And he does, but he doesn't come back up after like 30 seconds. That's when we realize none of us have ever seen Dan swim, just wade around in the water. I end up having to jump in and pull him out of the water. Dan apparently can't swim, but wasn't about to let that get in the way impressing the girls. Pro tip: nearly drowning does not impress girls. Story 23. When I was in school, I was really into my guitars and going through those hormonal teenage years. I mainly played rock or metal, but at one point I started to learn some soapy ballads and love songs. This happened to be at just around the time that I was developing a crush on this girl that I went to school with. Unfortunately, she lived a few towns over from me, so we only saw each other at school. I decided to come up with a plan to ask her to meet up with me outside of school so that I could woo her. I remember that I had this vision of how our evening would go. We'd take a walk around the park, then head to this spot in the hill, which I thought would look out towards the sunset. I'd bring my acoustic guitar along, present her with a single rose, and then play her a rendition of English Rose by the Jam. There were, however, some fundamental flaws in my plan. First off, the spot in the hill, i.e. a small mound which seemed bigger in my memory, then look out towards the sunset, as it was surrounded by large oak trees. Secondly, I don't know why I thought I'd carry my guitar with me the whole evening, or how it might just appear from nowhere when I needed it. And finally, probably the biggest flaw, was that I was going to sing a song about an English woman to my crush, who was Iranian. I ended up not doing it after coming to my senses a few weeks after being infatuated. Story 24. I had this big event, and I was, at first, wearing a nice jacket and a designer undershirt. I thought I looked really good. Well, while at the event, it was really crowded, I was kind of put in the spotlight. And so I did what I thought I had to do. But the thing was, there were literally tons of people in the venue, and for whatever reason, they were all looking at me. I'm not that talented and typically kind of shy. I was pestered as a skinny teen. Well, this is where the story goes downhill. As I mentioned, I was an awkward and bullied teen, so in order to build up my self-confidence, I worked on myself. This was a good thing, as I went to the gym and took care of my skin, but the other thing I did was get a tattoo. I thought that this would help me express myself, and it did. But the thing was, and I realize it now, only because people around me pointed out a lot, even to others online, my tattoos don't really tell a story, and look rather random and unconnected. But at the time that I got them, they each had a story to me. Anyway, so I'm at this event and everyone is looking at me, and I'm expected to sing, so I do. But this makes me even more hot and sweaty, and also a bit self-conscious. So I took off my jacket, and I was tending to close my eyes when I sang so that I didn't have to deal with the attention. But here's the kicker. I was getting even more nervous and hot, not just because of the attention on me, but because I could hear how I wasn't exactly hitting my notes. So here I was singing some lame song from like more than a decade ago, and it wasn't exactly on point. But here's where the stupidity came in. My girlfriend was watching, and she always said she loves my tattoos. So for whatever reason, I don't know, they say something like 5% of people do it in the same situation, I took off my shirt. I should not have done that. I thought, well, my girl loves to see me with my shirt off, and she constantly praises how nice my tattoos look. So I did it. It wasn't really well thought out. I'm not known for my critical thinking or self-awareness, that's for sure. Story 25. When I was in high school, I noticed a really cute guy in my theater class. He was the only left-handed person in the class, and my dumb brain thought the best way for him to notice me was to also become left-handed. Duh. I already played the French horn, so I already had some pretty sick left-handed dexterity down. I thought, hey, why not just learn the rest of everything? Boy, was I wrong. I first started clapping opposite of the way I usually did, and then started using utensils with my left hand instead of my right. Then I just fell down the rabbit hole. I soon learned how to write left-handed, an incredibly sore wrist as the result of my training. I thought around the end of the third quarter of school that he, surely, had noticed me by now. He totally didn't. I wrote him a love note with my left hand, thinking it was the best option. It wasn't, and I totally embarrassed myself for the rest of my junior year. Oops. I would still do most of my stuff with my left hand, besides writing, and at theater events we sometimes talk. Story 26. The girl I liked likes to drink. I tagged along to a New Year's party with her and her friends, and another girl, who I had no idea liked me, also tagged along. Second girl barely knew me and did not know any of the other people. I did not drink, but the girl in my dreams did, so I did. A lot. I was a bit hammered as New Year bells went off, and I got a dreamy kiss from the girl in my dreams. Like a, holy moly, she likes me kind of kiss. And I was still kind of spinning happy about this when the second girl barged in and smooched the sober right out of me. The whole 9 yards. It was, I heard afterwards, absolutely disgusting. I blacked out and woke up between them in a booth, trying and sometimes succeeding in alternately kissing each of them. Hammered me thought this was heaven. Nice girl started crying after a few minutes of playing PG-13 Fonzie, and her friends were all yelling at me. The forward girl had no shame and egged me on, but I thought I should leave because some little glint of rationality told me this was not cool. The nice girl eventually married me. I'm a very well-behaved husband. Guys who did something stupid for a girl. What did you do? A girl was leading me on, but also being obvious about it. I was stupidly believing I could change her ways and get her to actually date me. She had revealed she always wanted a giant teddy bear. So for her birthday or Valentine's Day, I bought a giant bear costume from Amazon and like 90 roses. The idea was one for every day I had known her. Creepy and cringy looking back. Anyhow, she called me intoxicated the night before and screamed mean things at me, and I finally broke down and told myself she was a bad person. Because she always was terrible to me, and I let myself think I could change that because I was desperate not to be alone. In the end, I created a sign that said, "Free bear hugs and roses for Valentine's," and wore the bear suit onto our college campus on Valentine's Day to give away all the roses. It made so many people happy that it was one of the best things I've ever done. So many hugs and girls were crying because they didn't have to feel so alone in a trashy commercialized holiday. It was cool. Plus, the football players all took a flower and hugged me, which was surprisingly wholesome. This is so awesome. What an amazing way to turn your personal pain and disappointment into a beautiful moment. Story 2. Do I have to pick just one thing? High school. I had a good job where I could work 40 hours a week and go to school, so I had a stupid amount of money and parents who, for some reason, didn't pay any attention to what I was doing with it. As a senior, I was dating a sophomore, and her mom told her, "It's not your prom, so I'm not paying for a dress and everything." I ended up spending well over $1,500 on dress and hair and makeup and shoes and manicure and a photo shoot and a custom-made blue topaz pendant with a massive stone I handpicked to perfectly match the dress she would be wearing. Last time I saw that stone, it was on a chain around her best friend's neck after we broke up. College. Girlfriend of several months called me up and was sobbing incoherently. All I could make out between the gulps of breath and wailing was gone. Her grandmother was not well, and she and I would go visit her from time to time, so I assumed it was her grandmother that passed away. I threw my Xbox controller mid-game at my roommate, leapt to my feet and said, "Hey man, I have to go." Once I arrived at her apartment and calmed her down, I managed to ascertain that it was not her grandmother who had passed away, but her goldfish. She said she wanted to have a funeral for her fish. I was annoyed, but determined to compassionately help her cope because obviously that goldfish mattered to her. I recommended she go get cleaned up and take a hot shower to relax, and while she was in there, I called up a couple of my friends and some of her girlfriends. I had a buddy of mine go to the park at the small campus lake and dig a fish grave. I had her girlfriends take her out to lunch, then I got the floating carcass out of the bowl, wrapped it in toilet paper and placed it in a jewelry box coffin. We went and had a full fish funeral with music and people speaking and Psalm 23 by the lake. Afterward, when we were back at her apartment, she said, "I don't know why you did that. You should have just flushed it." We broke up a few weeks later. I mean, who says, "I don't know why you did that"? Even if it is kinda dumb, no offense. It was a nice gesture and a cute move and would make a good memory. Story 3. I met a girl and fell head over heels for her. She lived in another state. Nevertheless, we started a long-distance relationship. Coincidentally, she had just lost her job, so I sent her money every week, almost my entire check, and I drove out to see her every chance I got. That autumn, I found out she had a boyfriend and was just using me to pay her rent. I was at work when I found out and just left. I had to confront her about deceiving me. I drove 3 hours to her house, and by the time I got there, I knew it didn't matter. She wasn't the person I thought she was. I gave her everything I had for nothing in return. Instead of being mad or saying something that would win her back, I told her that she's a horrible person for lying to me. That I hope someday someone hurts her as much as she did me. The next day, I went back to my job to see if I could get my last paycheck. My boss took me into his office and laid to me about being irresponsible and failing the company. While I was sitting there, I could barely hear him as all I could think about was how stupid I was, and suddenly, I started crying. I mean, torrents of tears. Ugly cries. I must have bawled for a good 10 minutes. My boss stopped berating me and silently waited for me to get control of myself. Then, in a very sympathetic tone, he told me, "It's okay. I was in love like that once. We all do stupid things in the name of love. Try to learn from this. It may seem like the world is ending, but it's not. You'll be okay." Then he sent me back to work, stating that we'd never have to talk about it again. He was a good boss and a great guy. Story 4. I was so completely obsessed with a girl that I disregarded my own well-being and threw away any chance I had for success. We dated for 4 years while we were in school for architecture. Towards the end of our degrees, she started having trouble with her thesis project and asked for help. What can only be described as a lengthy period of insanity, I decided to stop working on my own projects and focus entirely on her thesis. I did everything for her. Designs, drawings, models, and write-ups. Her presentation went flawlessly, and she had the top grades in her class. As a result of staying up all night for weeks at a time and repeatedly delaying my own work, I failed most of my classes and dropped out of school. She was grateful and begged me to help her work on her master's degree as well. No problem. Got her straight A's and a brand new diploma to add to her collection. She dumped me on graduation day and immediately began a relationship with someone who understood the importance of self-respect. I'm not even mad. It was entirely my own doing, and I learned some valuable lessons. Really expensive mess up though. Cost me about 8 years of my life playing catch-up. Never put a school relationship before your own success. After I failed out of school, I tried to reapply to my architecture program that following year. I got a letter in the mail letting me know that my student loans were in default, and I was ineligible for any financial aid. The news was soul-crushing, and I really expected that my life was over. That's when I seriously considered ending it all as a way out. In the end, I spent about a year in a complete haze, unable to function properly, not eating and rarely leaving my bed. I ran out of savings, lost my apartment, and had to move back into my parents' house. The turning point for me was when I started speaking openly and honestly with my friends about what I was going through, and I credit them with pushing me in the right direction. I started researching about it and how to combat negative thoughts, and ultimately came to the conclusion that life is something I want to experience. Something interesting might happen eventually, even if things are bad right now. To move forward, I embraced the fact that I was at rock bottom and convinced myself that there was nothing more I could lose. While my past self was afraid of failure, the new me said, "Who cares? Let's do this." My mission in life became getting back into school, no matter the cost. So I applied to any job I could and was fortunate to be accepted at a landscape design company that needed a draftsman. After 4 years, working 9 hours a day at $12 to $16 an hour, I had managed to make enough consecutive payments on my old school loans that they were deemed rehabilitated. Please keep in mind that during this time I was able to live rent-free and had minimal payments to bear, so I was extremely fortunate during that time. The last step was signing up for classes in my old school and taking out new federal loans. Going back to school as an adult while working full-time is tough, but at the same time I feel there's no better way to do it. I had a new appreciation for my education, crushed my classes, and graduated within 2 years. I even managed to bring my grades up from a 2.7 to a 3.2 GPA. So that's the basic version of what happened. There's a ton of details I'm leaving out, but covers most of it. If anyone is going through something similar, just hang in there. There are ways to fix almost any issue if you make the difficult choice to work towards a solution. Start small, and don't get overwhelmed if you're years away from reaching your goals. Time will help heal your pain and you will learn lessons along the way. Story 5. I've told the story before, but when I was about 8 years old, we took a field trip to the Field Museum here in Chicago. During our lunch break, I decided to wander off to the gift shop and see what they had. I had a huge crush on this girl named Victoria in my class, and I saw this ladybug ring for a couple of dollars. I knew she liked ladybugs, and I had money my parents gave me to buy something at the shop, so I decided to buy the ring and give it to her. I was really nervous and kept waiting for the right time to do it. I eventually decided to just go for it and walked up to her near the end of the trip. She was with some of her friends, which made me more nervous, but I found the courage to do it. She looked at the ring and laughed. Her friends joined her and she then tossed the ring in the trash. I was completely devastated and tried hard to hold back my tears. Even though I'm over it now, that completely messed up my confidence with girls for a long time. Looking back, I may have embarrassed her by giving it to her in front of her friends, which is why she reacted that way. But whatever the case, it's probably the most embarrassing I've been in my life. Story 6. Dude, I knew his girlfriend of 3 months breaks up with him before studying abroad. He says they can go long distance. She says she wants to enjoy her time and doesn't want to date. She goes to Europe. He empties his bank account to buy a ticket to Europe. He shows up at her apartment. She had given out her address to get care packages from friends or family. She's shocked and freaked out to find him sitting by her front door. She flips out on him and tells him that he cannot stay with her. He had already emptied his bank account, so he spent the next week and a half trying to find places to sleep and finally just staying in the airport until his flight. Things that seem romantic in the movies are not in real life. Knew another dude that drove 14 hours to see his college girlfriend of 2 months at her family's house in New Orleans over fall break. She didn't invite him, and he thought she was rude for being upset since he drove so far to see her for the weekend. Her family was freaked out since she was a freshman and had a dude follow her for a 4-day weekend. Story 7. The last couple of years in high school, my classmate and I were always flirting and occasionally we kissed at parties. Then the moment came where she left high school and I had to redo the last year due to an accident which severely hampered my study. She left for another city, a couple of hours away to attend university. We promised we would stay in contact. After I rehabilitated for about 80% within 6 months, we agreed upon seeing each other in her city on a Saturday night. But she never turned up. I genuinely believed we both liked each other. Normally, I would immediately break off contact. However, this girl was different. Once or twice per year, we would stumble upon each other in her hometown. We both have moved away from our hometown, and we immediately hit it off with this obvious flirtatious behavior. This is continued by staying in contact by WhatsApp or text. After many tries, like mentioned above, I made the decision to stop all contact with her because it hurts every time. She didn't even react to it, by Facebook or text. It turned out she was very toxic, and I'm glad I don't speak to her anymore. As a lesson, anyone who blows off after driving hours to see them with no excuse, they're not good enough for you. Story 8. While this is a major event that kind of determined my standing in high school, it doesn't really count as something I did for her, but who cares? So it basically started off with basic stuff. I had a crush on this girl and I wanted to impress her, etc. Funny enough, my definition of impressing someone was making a fool out of myself. Classic, I know. But this one instance was when I took it too far and decided to pull an OG prank involving the pulling of a stool or a chair right as someone sat down. Unlucky for me that this someone was my crush. My dumb self thought it would be funny to pull her stool right as she sat down. Lo and behold, she fell, and it would have been great if she got up, laughed, etc. But no, she ended up fracturing her arm, and I was embarrassed. The following weeks that ensued were turmoil, and I got so much stuff for it. But it doesn't end there. After a couple of weeks of sorries and I'm an idiot and so forth, we began talking again, and my adolescent self thought this was the time to ask her out. So I did. I kid you not, I asked her out using this phrase. I may have broken your arm, but I won't break your heart. I'm cringing at even typing this. And yeah, what ensued next was expected. I got rejected and was made a fool for the next 3 years of school. My friend even went far enough to fake medical documents and put my name on them as her spouse. I was done. Moral of the story, do not go with your instincts for anything emotional. I repeat, do not. Story 9. Helped an old friend out financially. She was talking about ending herself on social media. After a week of red flag posts I'd ignored up until the last one where she talked about taking pills and just be gone in her sleep, so I decided to reach out. I ended up spending many hours a day trying to get her spirits up. She was in a mistreating relationship where the guy would take her money, get hammered, accuse her of stealing his money she had in her bank account. I ended up helping her pay off some immediate bills, land a job, or get out of that relationship, helping her turn her debt around. It felt good to try and do something genuine for someone without the undertone or context of needing any reciprocation in any way. I already had a girlfriend in a happy relationship. This was a few years ago. I would call her at night in case she needed to talk and find out what progress she had made. She was in better spirits, and that made me feel better about doing the right thing. And then one day she didn't answer her phone. I called again and no answer, so I left her a voice message. The next morning I got a good morning text and it was never read. I went about my day. Later I found out she had blocked me from social media and her phone. She had gone back to the guy that was mooching all her money. And last I knew, she moved back in with him in a ghetto apartment basement somewhere, quit her job, and her car got repossessed. Lesson learned. Story 10. Might not be something too insane or extreme, but this happened in 2018, St. Valentine. In my high school, between every hour we get a 10-minute pause and a 20-minute one, basically lunch break. At the time, it was really cold and snowy, with the snow being merely 1.5 meters high. Through the class windows, you could see the bad snowstorm easily. In my country, the weather is pretty messed up. I had a crush on a girl, and I probably still do. That's in my classroom, and since high school had started, I've been planning to express my feelings about her. I just didn't know how. So on that day, I decided to go through the snowstorm and buy one rose and wait for her in class, as I knew that she wasn't there. She usually goes out on every pause, especially in the 20-minute ones. Those 15 to 20 minutes felt like more than 30. I had to find my way through the snow to the flower shop. I finally did it. I bought that rose, the biggest and the most beautiful one that was there. I got in class, waited for her with insane anxiety, as everyone, almost in the class, after understanding to whom the flower was meant to be given, was cheering on me. She comes, I start walking towards her, the insane anxiety still hanging there, and I give her the rose. In a pretty common way, but still elegant, I ask her out to watch a movie together. She says that she will probably come, but I felt incredibly better and relieved. What happened? She kept postponing our date and we never ended up going out together. I literally prepared myself like 4 times, 4 different Fridays, both physically, clothing, and mentally. She said to me, through someone I know, that she rejected me because of the bad guys in my class, as half of the class started making fun of me bringing that flower to her, and that she would have liked to go out on a date with me. Obviously, she didn't. Story 11. Gave a random, but amazing looking, like future wife looking, girl on the bus my bank pass. I was not at all in the mood for conversation, but I didn't want to maybe miss out on my soulmate. Guess I watched too many rom-coms because I thought I'd drop a note or something, but I had nothing of the sort on me. I did, however, have the bank pass to her house account. I never used it, but it had my initials and last name on it. Enough for her to look me up on Facebook or something similar, I reckoned. Needless to say, it was a disaster. My moment came. I had to get off the bus. She didn't look like she was going anywhere. I tried to be smooth and pretend to drop it while I was getting off the bus, but either she didn't notice or she didn't care. So I got back into the bus and awkwardly handed her my bank pass, muttering something like, "Could you give this back to me someday?" Never saw the girl again, nor the pass, naturally. All I got was this mediocre story and endless ridicule from everyone I know, because this story went around pretty fast once I told some friends. To be honest, the cumulative laughs they are to this day, getting out of the story by far exceeds the extreme awkwardness and failure of that day. Story 12. Here we go. 5th time's the charm. When I was in high school, I had a crush on this girl who friend-zoned me almost instantly. Let's call her Jay. She was a good friend and I didn't want to lose that, so I didn't tell her about my feelings. Almost a year later, one of her friends mentioned that Jay actually had a crush on me as well, but felt the same way I did about our friendship. I thought this was a prank and I didn't want to act on it, but I was curious and wanted to know if it was actually true. This was when Facebook just launched and everyone rushed to get on it. I made a fake account on Facebook and sent Jay a friend request. Let's call the fake account I made T. I intentionally left the profile picture blank. Obviously, she was not going to accept a friend request from some stranger, so I had to let her think that this guy exists. To do that, I basically kept dropping his name between conversations by telling her that he was a new transfer and was very cool. She bought it and accepted the request. This is where it goes south. As T, I started chatting with her and we kind of hit it off. I mean, it wasn't hard because I knew what she liked. Again, as T, I asked her if she liked anyone on campus or if she was already dating. To my surprise, she said she wasn't dating but had a crush on someone from campus. I tried to get her to say the name, but she refused. Our online chatting went on for a couple of weeks. She kept telling T that she wanted to meet him on campus, but I kept dodging by saying that we had different classes and different lunch breaks, so we couldn't meet. After 3 weeks again as T, I asked her who that someone is that she liked. Well, she said that she likes T. I was shell-shocked. Then happy, then shell-shocked, then happy again. I didn't know what to say. Did she like T or me? Well, obviously she likes T, but T is me. I didn't reply to her and just stopped using that account after that. I planned to tell her that it was me all along. I gathered the courage to do so, and one day I just walked up to her and told her that I was T. She first laughed and thought I was joking. Her smile slowly faded as I told her what had actually happened. Well, she slapped me, called me a creep, and walked away. Story 13. Waiting around for years after they broke up with me because they kept me on a string. They always used me as patches for the holes in the guys they dated after. Guy doesn't like to talk. They call me all the time. Guy's a schmuck. They vented to me all the time. Guy never helps them out. They called me for help. I did this with the 3 big relationships of my young life and turned away so many girls who actually liked me during the time. Because I was so helpful, they would change their minds. They never did. Ultimately, I wasted many years, almost a third of my adult life, basically turning away or ignoring people who had genuine feelings for me because I didn't understand these relationships were over, and I was being used. And not in a malicious way, mind you. It's just that I was helping them be happy without them having to ever do the same for me. They used me like an antidepressant prescription. Why would they ever come back to me? They got everything out of me the same, whether in a committed relationship or just using me to glaze over the next guy's potholes. People, when a woman decides her relationship is over, let go, or you will be dragged. You don't have to be a piece of trash about it. Just accept it. Don't linger. The moment I did this, I met and fell crazy in love with an awesome woman who stood by my side for the past 11 years. The best 11 years of my life. She's now my wife, and we have a perfect little angel of a son together. And she still makes every day awesome. When I met her, I nearly turned her away too. But a friend who saw things better than me put it in clear terms. I was sending away a potential new future knocking on my door to hang on to one that was on its way elsewhere. Best advice I ever got. She changed my life. Story 14. In high school, this girl who I was close friends with, but also had a not-so-secret crush on, told me once how she really loved those huge 7-foot-tall teddy bears. So I told her one day I'd buy her one, and she laughed, writing it off as a joke. Fast forward like 3 years later, when we were going to the same local college and reconnected after slowly drifting apart after high school. She tells me one day that she's sick, so I do the only logical thing. Drive to Costco after class, drop $200 on that huge teddy bear, stuff it into the backseat of my tiny Honda Civic, drive incredibly dangerously since the bear is taking up my entire rear window, then show up at her front door. She says it feels too weird and romantic, given her past, me having that not-so-secret crush back in high school and her having to tell me multiple times that we're better off as friends. So I do the whole drive back and return the bear. Story 15. Hold my drink. All different girls. Bought her a set of tires. Hers were crazy unsafe. Bought her pawn stuff back out of the pawn shop because she missed it. $1,500. It was repawned in 2 weeks. Moved to Texas. Left Texas. Drove 14 hours through the night because she was really depressed and wanted a friend and no notice. Then I met my wife. I bring her flowers for no reason. I bring her chocolates for no reason. I refer to her strictly as hotness or smoking hotness at formal events. I tell her at least once a week that I respect her strength and power. I also tell her I'm grateful to have her be part of my life, and I a part of hers. I wash her nasty gym laundry. I vacuum. We try to have a fancy dinner out every payday. Sometimes that consists of Bob Evans. Lol. And the beat goes on. The best part is that all this stupid stuff leads to wisdom. And eventually grace. I can love my wife gracefully because of those mistakes and embarrassments made with those lesser bimbos whom I thought needed me. Because now I understand the difference between being needed and being wanted. Story 16. I ran away with her. It gets pretty wild, so strap in. We were in high school and I had just moved across the state, roughly 8 hours away. We were dating for roughly 2 years, so this was a heavy blow. The reason I put ran away in quotes is because we came back 2 days later, and I never actually planned on running away forever. My plan felt like a good one at the time, and I still think it would have worked if things didn't hit the fan like it did. I drove her around. Heading towards California, my plan was to talk to her, really make her open her eyes and realize running away was foolish. But as I was driving, she texts all of her family saying that she's running away with me. She also grabs my phone to text my family for me, all while I obviously drive. Naturally, our parents flip. They call the cops, and because of laws and her parents, I'm technically kidnapping her. Oh, that doesn't sound bad enough. The car I had just bought a few days ago, I didn't transfer the title yet, because the car was owned by an acquaintance who agreed to let me use the car after giving him a down payment. So, Grand Theft Auto. I accidentally committed Grand Theft Auto. The girlfriend took the SIM cards out of her phone, so when I rolled up back at my house a couple days later, I didn't realize what kind of hellstorm I was walking into. She did tell me that she told everyone we were running away, so stupid me decided to just leave the SIM cards out while we were heading back. Worst part, when I told my parents my intentions, they actually kinda understood and I didn't get in trouble. Like, at all. Which is absolutely crazy. Because my mom was the type that smashed my Xbox after not cleaning my room the first time she asked. Girlfriend got grounded for a very, very long time. Story 17. I intoxicatedly agreed to visit an aggressive dog she was dog sitting. We were in grad school and it belonged to her best friend a few apartments down. This was a dog that had a reputation of chasing strangers, especially men, out of the house. The dog knew the girl very well and was completely fine at that point, but struggled with new folks. So we're both hammered and expressing our mutual love of animals and talking about all of the pets we want to own one day. And she gets super excited and suggests we go visit this dog that she's dog sitting. Worth noting at this point that the girl has a background in behaviorism and can definitely handle herself around challenging animals. But I'm more of a hobbyist trainer and I'm nervous about the situation. So now I have a choice to make. To this day, I remember approaching the apartment's yard and being overtaken by a sense of calm. I had made peace with the fact that I was willing to roll the dice in a few bites for an opportunity to get to know this fine young woman a little better. She comes flying out the door with a dog and a leash, who's dragging her toward me at a quick pace. I remember that I have made peace and confidently stride forward and offered the dog my hand. This time, fortune favors the bold and the dog loves me. We have a great time, all of which earns huge brownie points for my companion. That was almost 10 years ago now. Her and I have been inseparable since and are engaged to be married this fall. We own 2 dogs, 2 cats, and a turtle. After writing all of this out, I apologize because I'm realizing this was definitely not the dumbest thing I've ever done for a girl. That is, however, my favorite dumb thing I've done for a girl. Story 18. My time to shine. When I was in college, there was a bunch of us in an apartment and we got on the topic of this girl's pepper spray. Now for context, I had recently been told that someone had accidentally gotten a little of their pepper spray in their mouth and it wasn't that bad. So wanting to look big and strong or something, I volunteered to spray some in my mouth because how bad could it be? So I sprayed it directly into my mouth. Kids, don't do this at home. It was immediately the worst physical sensation I've ever felt. I could barely breathe. My whole face went numb and tears were streaming out of my eyes. I went outside in case I was going to make a mess and also because I was extremely embarrassed. She ended up coming out and spending time with me to make sure I was all right. So, boys and girls and all in between, I hope the lesson you got from this is to always check your facts before blindly believing information you heard as an offhand comment. Before demonstrating said knowledge in front of a cutie. Story 19. I almost got married. My last girlfriend was bipolar and pretty mistreating. She broke up with me on a weekly basis for no reason other than she enjoyed tormenting me. After we'd been dating a couple months, she broke up with me on Christmas Day morning at my mother's house because she was bored and got mad that I didn't want to skip out on Christmas lunch with my family. I told her how much I loved her and that I could see myself marrying her. She took that as a proposal, and I ended up spending the last $200 to my name and an engagement ring the following day. I had 54 cents left in my checking account and closed out my savings account. Fast forward a couple of weeks, and she decided she was going to leave me if I didn't agree to just get married in a courthouse. She kept saying she'd stop threatening to break up with me all the time if we were just married. So we got a marriage license. I had no idea before that it costs money to get a marriage license. She didn't have any friends because she was extremely good at burning bridges every time she got mad at someone. So I had to try to find someone to be the witness. None of my friends would do it. I even tried to get my sister to do it, and she got furious with me about the whole ordeal. So it never happened. We continued dating for a little over a year after that. My ex just filled out the marriage license herself and posted it to Facebook and pretended like we were actually married. Everyone I knew got mad at me. I started setting all the bridges on fire with my closest friends and my family. Eventually, I just got really tired of constantly fighting to keep her happy. I couldn't look myself in the mirror because I was so ashamed of how I treated everyone who loved me. When I quit playing her games, she started cheating on me. It eventually broke up for good on Valentine's Day after I walked in on her with her 40-year-old boyfriend in the apartment I paid for. We were 20 years old. I was paying for everything by maxing my student loans from college. That still took her 2 months to move out. The happy ending is that I managed to mend all the relationships I had with my friends and family, and I did finish my bachelor's degree in math and physics, and graduated with honors. I've been very single for 9 years now, but I at least respect myself now. Story 20. Me and my girlfriend split. I was devastated. I wrote down every lyric from Maroon 5, songs about Jane that made me think of her, and sent it to her in an email. Everyone she told thought I was a weirdo and she never spoke to me again. Next, there was a girl at school and I fancied her. Everyone in class told me if I asked her out in front of the class, she'd say yes. Of course, foolish romantic I am. I shouted out, "Laura, will you go out with me?" And she just said, no. And everyone started laughing. Next, there was another girl who I was madly in love with in high school. I watched too many romantic films and thought I needed to make a big move. I cycled to her house, rain beating down on me, pushing onward to finally make the declaration of love to the girl I'd had a crush on for years. Get to her house, knock on her door. Her mom answers. I ask to see her daughter. She comes to the door. I say boldly, "Kate, I really like you and have for ages. Will you be my girlfriend?" "No." I say, "Okay then," and leave and cycle home feeling crushed. Those are innocent days. In my adult days, my worst one was, "We need to break up. Marry me." What? No, it's too late. Leave dejected and feeling like a total idiot. God, I look back at myself and wish I could slap myself. Yep, my love life has been an ongoing ridiculous cluster of hyper-romanticism and getting laughed at. On to my 30s. Story 21. Backed out of going into the army when I was a few weeks out from basic training. Declined the chance to go to the police academy after passing the written test. Moved nearly 600 miles away to a place I hated and knew no one. Worked 65 plus hours a week at a job I couldn't stand in order to pay the bills while she went to college full time. She had health issues the entire time we were together. Ulcerative colitis. I did everything possible to support her and make her life as easy as it could be. She ended up having surgery to fix her issues. Total colectomy. And spent about 6 months in the hospital due to complications. She got the lap band surgery at the same time as the other and lost about 80 pounds over the next year. After she graduated and started her teaching career, I was supposed to be able to go to college myself. What actually happened was after she graduated, she began cheating on me. She'd lost all of her weight, gotten healthy, and felt like she needed a fresh start. Told me I was a reminder of what her life was like before. Wasted 6 years of my 20s with her that I'll never get back. Moved in with my parents. I was never able to save money because she didn't work until the end, and started having health issues of my own. Diagnosed with multiple sclerosis not long after. It wasn't all bad though. I got a best friend out of it. A dog. Was able to meet someone who really cares for me after I moved back home. Story 22. I'm late, so this is definitely going to get buried. But to the people who look through every response to a thread, this one's for you. My junior year of high school, I got the feels for a girl. But at this point, I didn't have the confidence to just walk up and ask her out in person. The problem is, I didn't have any social media or her number. So as I'm thinking about what the hell I'm going to do, I remember that her email is one of those mass email lists from the school. I'm like, who cares? I found it and sent an email saying it's me and gave me a number saying I had to talk to her. About an hour later, she sent me a text asking what's up, and I just straight up went for it and said she was cool and if she wanted to go out sometime. The funny thing is, she said yes. And I was like, hell yes, this played off. And then 10 minutes later, she said, as friends, right? Maybe not the stupidest thing to go for a girl, but pretty bizarre. About a year later, we were hanging out with friends and I'd grown socially and me and her had laughed it off. So I shared that story with some of her friends. Unexpectedly, all of them, instead of making fun of me, they all gave me props saying it was a confident move. The girl commented saying, sometimes I think back to that and wonder what things could have been. And honestly, we could have been a power couple. I was already in another relationship at that point, so nothing ever came of it. But the moral of the story is, if all you have is an email or some other form of non-direct communication, it's probably not going to be the end of the world if you go for it. Story 23. Have you ever heard the saying that a boy will pull a girl's hair to get her to notice him? That was me once. Except I completely ruined my relationship with a group of friends that I had thought of as my family. There was a girl in middle school that I really liked but just didn't know it yet, and we really hated each other. That was until we were stuck together. So my school was really small, and instead of any school sports, they had mandatory ballroom dance class. Many people dreaded it, as we were angsty middle schoolers that had actually touched the opposite gender. The only grades it was mandatory for were 5th and 8th. It was my first year doing it. I came to the school in 7th and went into 8th. So my classmates had about a year's head start, and some of them kept doing the program throughout their time at the school. This girl had been doing it since 4th grade, and she was the best in school. I, however, was terrible. I really couldn't do any of the moves at all, and I had to apologize multiple times to my partners for stepping on their feet. But there's a twist to the story. There was a competition involved in which the 12 best dancers in the class, 6 boys and 6 girls, went to compete against other schools in the program. So most of the selection was expected, but the dance teacher must have been off her rocker because she selected me to compete. The 12 of us went to the first rehearsal in school, and we were paired up. I was paired up with this girl, the best dancer in the class, while I was the worst, and we hated each other. But over time, I got better and better at all the moves, and over time, we respected each other more and more until we were friends. It got to the point where we're the best in the competition and won the first round of said competition, where we were supposed to go to a place in Manhattan, New York to compete for the finals. I lived in Queens at the time. We kept practicing and having a growing respect for each other until the finals, but I wasn't staying in New York City for much longer, since I was moving literally right after the finals. I'd like to think that if the other people on our team were better, we would have won. But we lost. All of us went to a local pizza place to have dinner, feeling just a little deflated. But the night was young. Slowly but surely, more people kept leaving until there were just 4 people left sitting at a bar, playing pool and drinking soda while the other people's parents got hammered. My parents were out packing up for the move, and they were picking me up at around midnight. It was me, 2 others, and the girl. We sat laughing and having fun, talking about the year and getting closer to each other. Then I had to leave. And it was when I was leaving that I realized I really liked my partner. But I had to go. But that isn't the end of the story. It's our first year of high school. The finals took place a week after 8th grade graduation, and it's spring break when I get an invitation for a reunion. And I was pumped because I really liked these people, and I considered them just short of family. So I come in for a day, and immediately I'm causing problems for myself. I was being a schmuck to everyone. I don't even know why, but to this girl I was just being mean. I called her a witch multiple times and called her ugly. I called her names like cow and witch. But after I left the party, I felt incredibly bad, but I was too much of a coward to march back over there and say it to her face. So I decided to apologize by phone. But she wanted nothing to do with me, and in the end, her mother called me to stop me from texting her anymore. And in the end, she blocked me out of her life for good, and so did many others because of it. I tried to reconnect, but it never went well. I learned that day to be a bit more honest with myself about how I feel and try to communicate those feelings into words for other people. I don't even know if I was trying to impress her. I think that I just wanted her attention. But either way, it was the first time in my life where I truly felt like the villain in someone else's story. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're gonna love this. Catch you in that video.